I'm South Shore Press News Director Stefan Mihailu, joined by George Santos. George, under the circumstances, how are you?
Steph, it's hard to equate. How am I? I've been somewhat resigned of reality. I still try to maintain my personality. I don't break who I am, but it's not fun. It's not fun at all. Look, I went into court last Friday. Two things: to be held accountable and fully cognizant of my situation, and remorseful for some of the stupid things I've done, and repentant. Unfortunately, the judge relied on some sensationalized articles and the sensationalized narrative that the DOJ wrote. I never in my million years of my life would I think that they would want to slap me with pretty much the max allotted within the sentencing guidelines and go 7 years. I mean, it's pretty crazy.
But you've been consistent in saying, I made mistakes, I did wrong, I should be held accountable. Your attorneys are pushing for 2 years. Obviously, prosecutors are pushing for 7. Were you just floored and shocked that the judge went to the max?
Well, when it comes down to you, it's almost like you're overcome by this awful feeling. It's almost an anesthetic feeling, and immediately you start thinking, life's over. It's over. Like, what's there left to fight for? What's there left to do? This is soul crushing and life ending. I'm 36. I'm going to be 37 July 22nd, 3 days prior to surrender. Um, we're looking at a 44-year-old person coming out of this 7 years later. There's not much you can achieve, especially when you've been gone for so long. So it's this realization that you put yourself in this predicament, you did this to yourself, and there's nothing you can do to change that. And when you start having that sobering feeling, it's like, I'm cooked. There's no way I can survive this in every form you can think of. And then the concerns of safety. Do you know how many people are in federal custody today because of bills that I sponsored in 2023? There are series. We've already started doing the research, especially within the federal system. So that's a big safety risk for me. I am part of the reason that they're there. So I thought of all of those things. And as they all come through my head, I keep looking back and saying, hey, kid, you really screwed up. You put yourself in the most awful position you could have ever. And when I think about it, it's frustrating.
So take us through sentencing. You're standing there hoping beyond hope that you would be held accountable. You made mistakes. You admitted that it would be along the lines of a 2-year sentence and not a 7-year one. So take us through that moment when you heard the exact sentence.
Based on all the analysis of other similar cases and other public figures, there's just this weird, vastly irate energy coming from every angle for me. The courtroom was filled with people who were there simply to protest me and to smile in my face at my demise. I mean, it was just so unbecoming in a sense of humanity at that point. I saw the worst of humanity. I might have been on the side of being part of the worst of humanity at one point, but that was one moment in my life. Never will I show up to court to relish over somebody's demise. I feel like that's a very unhappy human being that feels the need to do that. But on top of that, it's just this constant hatred and vitriol that's out there. It's the media, it's the government. This became so personal. I don't wish upon anyone what I've experienced, but 7 years is excessive. It's a gross misuse of the Justice Department and the justice system. Justice is supposed to be to right a wrong. Justice is supposed to serve as a reformative action, not a penalizing action. And I feel penalized and I feel targeted in the most political way humanly possible.
Have you had time to reflect since sentencing when it comes to, as you described, the situation that you're in right now, looking back and saying, damn, I'm here because of me. I didn't tell the truth. I did A, B, C, and D, and I'm the one responsible for the position that I'm in right now.
100% every day. It's a sobering reminder. Remember, you screwed yourself up. You put yourself in this predicament. You put yourself in this position. No one else. We can argue semantics on certain things, I feel, but I feel like, you know, if I speak, it's weaponized against me. My First Amendment was weaponized against me because apparently I can't criticize the government. If you criticize the government for being overly zealous and overly prosecutorial, I guess that shows that you're unrepentant for some reason. But to also add insult to injury, it becomes a matter of he's dodging responsibility, which is not. The government did not get everything right in this case. They got a lot of wrong. They presented a lot of factually inaccurate, statements that I'm going to have to live with, because if I try to fight it, I'm being unrepentant, unremorseful. I'm scum of the earth. Throw me in prison for 20 years. So just let it go.
George, in some twisted political sense, getting a 7 year sentence, could that be the best possible outcome for a potential pardon? Whereas the president can say, yeah, you made mistakes. Of course, you should serve time in prison, but not 7 years, considering there's gangbangers, drug dealers, rapists, killers who don't get 7 years in prison. So is it almost, I don't want to use the word blessing, but is it a potential best outcome? Whereas the president can say, wow, yeah, you got to be punished, but 7 years is excessive.
I think that the powers of the pardon are plenary, and the president can choose to do what he wants with them. Obviously, I am now seeking a disposition and assistance from the president because I do believe that there's been a gross misuse of justice, a gross misuse of the powers of the judicial system rendered in this case. If you really compare it apples to apples, and unfortunately, I was compared to oranges. Um, I'm not going to say it's a blessing because I would rather live in a world where the judicial system and the Justice Department is fair and we don't have to resort to asking for help and clemency from the president because of politically motivated sentences. That being said, that being said, I just want to remind you that there are people in this country who have committed rape, murder, and in some cases, multi-million dollar schemes to launder money or to actually defraud people in with plenty of victims who lose everything, and they're not getting 7 years. So I'm not dodging that. I'm just pointing out the political nature of this. This is for sure a political decision. This was a massively politically inclined prosecution because my number one sin and biggest crime in life was flipping a congressional seat. We all know that. Without that, they wouldn't even look at me. And then obviously, I'm to fault for much of what came afterwards, but that's just how I feel about this.
So, what would you say to President Trump about the fact that, sure, I've made mistakes, I should be punished, but 7 years is ridiculously long and not right for the crime?
Oh, my pitch to the president is simple. He's no stranger to an excessive judicial department. He's not a stranger to a government hell bent on destroying a person. He's been on the receiving end of that. Hell, he still is to a certain degree. So I hope that he can find it in his heart and can see right through this and understand that I would not be here asking, as I had not asked, I had not petitioned him publicly or anyone in the administration publicly up until after the sentencing because the sentencing was overkill. Had this not been the case, I wouldn't even be having this conversation. But because I believe so strongly that this is a definitely politicized sentence and a definitely overreach of the judicial system and the Department of Justice, I'm asking him and imploring him for clemency because this is not how justice should be rendered in this country.